Hi guys, Paul Michaels from Real Dog Training and Big Game Indicating Dogs with another video from the couch. So today's topic is I want to talk about fundamental principles of real dog training, and our first fundamental principle I want to talk about is first exposure. So fundamental principles to real dog training are my overriding principles that you have to understand and know to put all of our training techniques in place and follow the whole system and understand how it all works. First principles are really important to be aware of and understand. If you understand the first principles of something, you will put all the little steps together after that in place yourself. If you understand all those little steps, or someone just shows you step by step how to do it, but you don't understand the fundamental principles of the system and the philosophy, then all those little steps don't work. You know what to do, but you don't really know why you're doing it, so it can be very difficult. So the fundamental principles of real dog training is something I've been working on for a long time, and identifying what they are and where they fit into the whole system, and that's something that we're breaking right down in the Dear Dog Blueprint and going over these principles every time they come up throughout the series. We break them all down and go over how they work with what we're doing now and fitting them all in and just building the whole picture. So the blueprint's all about having all those little steps, the actual step-by-step nuts and bolts, but also understanding the foundation and the principles and the philosophy behind everything you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're doing. You need to know why you're doing it so you can do it properly. And I just want to talk about the first principle to real dog training, and it's none of these principles are really in order. They're all just as important as each other, but this one comes up first, and it's the principle of first exposure. So the principle of first exposure, that's just what I call it, the principle of first exposure. But what it means is the first time you introduce a dog to any new situation has the most impact on the dog, and it sets up the dog for the way it will want to do that activity or deal with that situation from there on out. The first time is the most important. It's the first time sets the largest imprint on the dog's mind and sets up its behavior for how it will want to do it forever. And after that first time, whether that first exposure goes good or bad, whether it's good or bad for the dog, or it deals with the situation in the wrong way or the right way, depends on how it's going to go from there. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One example might be if you take a dog out hunting before it's trained, and we've just done a whole video on that and a whole bit other sides to that on training before you hunt. But if you take a dog out before it's trained hunting, and let's say you get close to a deer in the bush, you shoot the deer, the dog's not steady, it hasn't got range, it hasn't got steadiness to the shot, it hasn't got steadiness to running deer. You shoot the deer, the dog breaks at the shot because it hears the deer crashing away, and the deer crashes 50 meters and dies. So at the shot, the dog breaks, runs over there. When it gets there, it finds a dead deer kicking on the ground dying. The deer's dead, the dog's got the deer, you get the deer, you walk over there, you're all stoked because you just shot a deer over your dog, pat the dog. So now the dog literally thinks that when it sees a deer, all it needs to do is chase it, and that deer will die, and there'll be a dead deer at the end of the line if it just chases a deer. Because we've talked about how dogs can't rationalize and reason the way we can. The first time you take a deer in the bush and your dog in the bush and shoot a deer over it, the dog doesn't automatically assume that the big bang you made with that stick that you carry around has killed the deer, and that's why it only ran 50 meters and died. When a dog chases a deer, and after 50 meters the deer's dead, the dog literally believes that all it's got to do is chase a deer and it'll die. And if next time it chases a deer but you haven't shot the deer yet, and it chases it for hundreds and hundreds of meters and never catches up to it and it comes back to you and you growl it and tell it off, the dog's just confused, it doesn't understand. But next time it sees a deer, or a deer breaks or spooks, or you fire a shot, it's still going to want to chase a deer. It's always going to try to default back to that first time that a deer ran away from it, it chased it, the deer died, and you got the deer. There's a lot of first principles at play there. And training with success is another principle that we'll talk about later, but that's a classic case of first exposure, setting that behavior and that the way the dog thinks it works in stone, and the dog will just try to repeat that behavior over and over and over again. And you can manage it and try to pull it back and control it, but it'll take a hell of a lot of work, and you can never erase what has been done in that respect. You can't erase that experience that the dog chased the deer. When it got there, after chasing it for a while, it got to the dead deer, you got there, you patted the dog. That's how you succeed when hunting. So that's what it'll try to do later on. So that's one way that first exposure can work with you. Then if you flip it around and you train the dog properly, and you've got your range set up, you teach your dog to stay close, you teach it a steady stop command, you teach it stop to the shot, so anytime you fire a shot, it means the dog doesn't move after that until told to go. And you teach all of those things, and you use all your techniques while out hunting, and you get your dog close to a deer in the bush, its first deer, and the dog steady, stays close. You shoot the deer, the dog stays steady, you let the deer die, you let everything calm down, quietly take the dog over to the dead deer, give it a pat. Then the dog literally believes that when it smells deer and takes you to them and stays close and steady and quiet and all of that, it literally believes that that's how it gets the result. So that's using training with success and first exposure to your advantage. So all these principles can either work 100% against you or 100% for you. And when you train a dog like that, you set it up so its first exposure to its job that you want it to do is perfect. That's the behavior you set in stone, and that's where you get a dog that wants to stay close, sneaks into the deer, locks up, and looks back at you waiting for you to shoot it. If you introduce it to it any other way, that's the way it will think it works. So hugely important from a training tactical standpoint like that, and setting the dog up to do it the way you want it to do the job the first time, and setting that in stone with that first exposure. Another huge thing on first exposure is what I call non-avoidance training and confidence training and obstacle training. So things like teaching a dog to go in a kennel and sit nice and quietly in a kennel outside on its own, teaching a dog to go in the back of the truck, teaching a dog to swim in a river, climb up and down banks, over obstacles, logs and things like that. A lot of this comes down to non-avoidance training, which we go over a huge amount of this in the blueprint and setting it all up right. But first exposure's at play in all of these situations the whole time. The kennel's a huge one. A lot of people, when they first get their new pup, they bring it straight home, bring it straight inside, it's playing on the floor in the lounge and on the couch and sitting on their lap, and then it sleeps in the wash house, or it sleeps in a basket by their bed, or whatever they're going to do. And they think, oh, we'll start it off inside, get it comfortable there, and we'll slowly move it outside. But that's that setting in stone the first time. So you bring it home, the dog's first night, it sleeps in a wrapped up little cozy spot somewhere inside on your bed or wherever. That's how it thinks that's supposed to work forever. The first time is so powerful and important. It's incredible. And another thing we talk about is doing the worst first. So as far as kenneling goes, the first night I get a pup home, I make sure they've had a big day, I get them tired and worn out, and then I put them in the kennel with some food and a water and some nice bedding and walk away. I make sure they're tired. Young little 8-week-old pup, they've only got so much energy, they can only howl for so long. So the sooner you do it, the better. Wear them out, get them fed, make sure they've gone to the toilet and that they don't need to do any of that stuff, and I lock them up and I walk away, get completely away from them. And they'll whine and howl, but a tired young pup can only do that for 5 or 10 minutes, and then they wear themselves out, and then finally they sit down, fall asleep, and then I wait till they're quiet for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I go back out and I let them out when they're quiet. So what I'm setting up there is the pup thinks I don't come back and let it out until it's quiet. And I'm also setting up that it's to stay outside when it's here with me. First night it sleeps outside in the kennel, and that's where I started off. I set the dog all up quiet and happy out in the kennel. That's doing the worst first and using first exposure. And I'm also using training with success, because the pup only succeeds, I only go out and let it out of the kennel when it's nice and quiet, when it's doing what I want it to do. So I'm training the pup to get what it wants through doing what I want it to do, which is just sitting nicely and quietly in the kennel. Then once I've got the pup sleeping out in the kennel nicely, then I can bring it inside, because that's what a pup's naturally going to want to do anyway. But I've always got that tool to go back to, putting the pup outside in the kennel. And we go over all of this in the blueprint, setting the pup up outside to be happy and comfortable out there. And then I slowly integrate the pup inside and get them used to coming inside, sitting quietly and all of that. And we'll slowly get them to the point where they can actually come inside and sleep inside without going to the toilet inside or chewing anything up or anything like that. And it's the same with the truck too. I start the pup off in the back of the truck, and once it's used to that and I know I can go back to that anytime I want, then it gets to ride in the back seat and be with us. So yeah, that's a brief overview on first exposure. There's a lot more to it, but it's all about getting your pup or dog set up to deal with any situation the way you want it to deal with it forever, the first time it deals with it. And that's the behavior and pattern you're setting in stone, because that first time you only get one chance to do that, and that sets a very strong imprint in a dog's mind that you can never erase. So it's very, very important to get it right the first time. So I've got a couple more of these fundamental principles of real dog training videos that I'll make over the next week or two. So I'll keep them coming, and also heaps more stuff as well. And I'll be getting into some more hunting soon, so some real cool field videos coming your way. So thanks for watching. Paul Michaels from Real Dog Training and Big Game Indicating Dogs. We'll see you next time.